Okay. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Arch coming at you with the Star Wars Tides of Change role playing club official, sort of, because I just made it official yesterday when I decided to do this spoiler discussion for Star Wars The Last Jedi. We got Darth Hessian, we got Slacker Z. There are my homies from the club, and we're just going to get into it straight out the gate, man. So let me throw it over to Kevin. I know you put up a review on your channel yesterday, so why don't you sum it up real quick here? Just introduce yourself and tell us real quick just your initial thoughts on the movie, and toss it over to my boy Chris.
Well, okay, I go by Darth Hessian on the channel. You can call me Kevin. I'm fine with that. So anyway, my thoughts on the movie are very simple. I went and saw it. That they had a dual feature. It was his largest screen in Arizona. And I mean, really nice theater. We went and saw Force Awakens, followed by Last Jedi. And my reaction after I left the movie was, wow, this was such a great movie. And then I got back and I'm watching all these. Now, some things kind of sat with me a little difficult, but I still liked it. And then when I got back, I was watching all these reviews on it because finally I watched the spoiler review, see what everybody else tells me what I should think. And I'm like, part of me is like, did they watch the same movie? And then I'm like, okay, wait, you know what? They do have a couple points there. So I'm like, and a few of them said, okay, I didn't like it initially, but I went and watched it a second time, and then I really liked it. So I'm like, what the hell? I'll do the same thing. I'm going to watch this a second time, and that's exactly what I did. I saw the movie a second time, and I loved it more the second time. All of a sudden, things made a little more sense to me. And to me, okay, there's some people that said this is the best movie since Empire Strikes Back. I might not go that far, but I did like it. It's especially, I saw Star Wars in the theaters when it came out. So the one thing I will say, you're not going back to your childhood. Give it up. Your childhood ended a long time ago. So don't go there. But as an adult watching these movies, it actually made a lot of sense. I mean, it really did. So anyway, hey, I'm taking up too much time. Whoever's next.
All right, my initial impressions were, man, you know what? This movie was great. It totally blew me away by the fact that there was a lot of things I didn't expect to happen that happened. We'll probably get more into that as we're discussing it throughout the night, and I'll bring up those points later. But as far as, you know, top tier, I'll agree with Kevin. It's not Empire, but it is now my number 2 Star Wars, just because of two main reasons. One, that the tone has totally changed. Where, you know, you take, you know, me and Kevin and I maybe Archie a little bit in the original original trilogy. I grew up with that. Kevin was there and grew up with it too, into it, probably early adulthood. Then you had the prequels, was another generation, you know, like my sons and daughters generation. This is the new generation Star Wars, you know, my little 2 youngest boys. And with that, it's really made a dent that it's telling the same story, but in a way it's ending the old story and bringing it, Star Wars, to the whole new generation. So that's one reason I liked it. And two, everything that I expected that was just blown away, you know, and then, you know, just the surprises that happened that I wasn't expecting kept me, you know, it was a roller coaster ride the whole time. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that's why I put that at number 2 for me, for those 2 reasons. And now I'll pass it on to my boy Archie.
So let me ask you, Chris, how many times have you seen the film? Because we know Kevin's seen it twice. So how about you, man? How many times have you seen it?
I've only seen it the one time.
Okay.
I've only seen it. I usually really am one of those types of people that really pays attention to what's going on. So I was really, I mean, a bomb could have gone off behind me, and I would still be in the movie. So
you're damn right.
Yeah.
I would have been watching the film, be like, hey, so shut that noise off. Turn your phone off.
And the fortunate thing was I went completely.
Go ahead.
I went completely by myself. So I didn't have my kids with me or nothing. It was just me, myself, and I. So that's kind of helped me, you know, really focus on what's going on. I didn't really have any distractions. I did miss a little bit, you know, when I had to go to the bathroom, but Other than that, I
Okay,
saw
so-
most of it, and I only missed like a part where they were getting ready for Act 3 in the battle. So I knew
you
it was
should have
coming
went.
up. So I was like,
You should have went
"This is
during
the time to
Canto Bight.
go."
That's when you got to go. All right. So let me drop my initial
Yep.
impression.
Yep.
All right.
I've only seen the film one time. I can't really rate it in the films in order. I mean, I don't have. I haven't seen. I need to see it another time. I have it scheduled up. I'm gonna go, but I haven't gone yet, so I can't rate it. But what I can say, my initial impressions were that I enjoyed the film a lot. There was definitely parts where I was like, "What the hell?" I was not like super pleased because of certain character choices that were made like by not by the actors and everything. The performances were pretty fucking solid. Like the performances were really good. I enjoyed all of that. The visuals were super legit. Even the stupid, well, except for one part, the visuals were a little like what. But um, overall, I had a great time with the film. I came out of it super happy. I wasn't upset by any of the things. Um, the only thing that really upset me happened so early. By the time everything else went down, I came out with it happy. Obviously, there's some plot holes that you gotta just accept and move along with. But overall, I really liked it. And so let's start at the beginning of the film, man, and just start the conversation there, and we'll move through the movie as we go. Obviously, we can jump around freely as we wish, but so what was the opening scene here? Y'all refresh my memory. What was the first thing that popped in? Um, they were getting chased
Yeah.
Yeah.
in space.
What I remember about the initial part of the film is they were making the escape, and it was the whole, okay, I'm disobeying orders and I'm doing this, and that's Poe Dameron's part. And it's, for lack of a better term, it's so cliche in a lot of ways, but it still's good. Don't get me wrong, it's still good, but it is very, very cliche in a lot of ways. And go ahead.
Oh, well, the only thing I was going to say was, did it not feel like it started off like Revenge of the Sith? It was just like after the crawl, it just went boom right into the scene. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's what it felt with me. Instead of like, like gradual, usual into the scene.
Well, what got me about it, because we knew this was going to happen for those of us that, that follow a little bit of this stuff, is we knew that there was going to be no time jump. It was going to start off. So the fact that they're evacuating the base, kind of puts you right back into the moment you were at when you left the last movie. And therefore, it seemed, for lack of a better term, rushed, but at the same time, it would be rushed. You're trying to get out of there. And
okay, so I'm sorry, brother. Finish your thought. My bad.
No, I thought that now when that scene happened, or when it's like, okay, boom, okay, we're right in this. This is jumps. In other words, we're right back in the thick of things. One of the, how do I say it? I remember where I was going with this, and now I don't. But
No, it's cool, man. Let me jump in here.
Go.
So it starts off, and we jump into the ship, and we have no. It starts off with that battle with the jokiness and the waiting on the ship, and the whole fleet pops out, right? That was one of the first things. This was my reaction a lot of times. I'm just like, what? Donald Gleason. I don't know how to say his name. Donald Gleason. Hux. General Hux, or if he's Admiral now, I don't know. He's there. He's doing his thing. Why are they not opening fire immediately? That was my question. I'm like, get to shooting. He's like,
Villain has to give an arc of escape to whoever the enemy is. That's just a film lore 101. I mean,
yeah, you're right. So I guess that's the first thing that a lot of people have had problems with. We can jump in here. Is that jokey part? How did y'all feel about Poe's interactions with Hux there right at the start?
I loved it. It. That part was just so awesome, because number one, I didn't see it coming. I mean, it's okay. Here's the thing. I'm going to be 50 next year, so I'm old. And when you do something that surprises me, I'm impressed. And that surprised me. That was just like,
there were a lot of surprises in this movie.
I mean, that was just one of those. It's like, that goes back to the old style telephones where you had an answering machine on it or something like that. I mean, that's what it reminded me of. That really is. And for someone my age, we remember that. Someone that's in their 20s and 30s, like, oh, they didn't answer. You don't leave a message. You just text them. But so in my age, it's like we remember. Oh wait, put them on hold for a moment, and that's the thing. You're right. If you're a little older, that part's gonna be hilarious to you. If you're younger, you're gonna be like, I don't get that quite as much.
I thought it took a little bit too long. They milked it a little too much. I guess that was the point of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the scene in Thor. They do the same thing, sort of, where he starts off joking with Surtur or whatever, and he's just hanging there for a long time. And he's like, "Oh, 1 second," and he keeps flipping around. Like, "Oh, hang on, okay." It's like, "Well, what is this going to? What's going on here?" But the same exact thing happened in this film that happened in that film, where as the film progressed, the joking nature wasn't overbearing. And I will say this about that first scene. After the talking stopped, the scenes with Rose's sister, that was one of the only moments when I teared up in the film. That was very powerful filmmaking. Like, yeah, there's no like gravity in space, so like that's a definite plot hole. Like those bombs would not fall. Like that's just how space works. That wouldn't happen. But whatever. Like it was still very powerful. And as I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, I'm just gonna die here. This is crazy. I was getting very, because I've only seen the actress that plays Rose once or twice, like. And so I thought that was her. I couldn't tell. I was so wrapped up in the whole situation. I'm like, no, she's not going to die right in there. Like, oh man, it's going down for this character right out the gate. And so that was very powerful to me. I enjoyed that. What did you think, Chris?
Oh, you couldn't play that scene any better that way. It set the scene for the interaction between Leia and Poe right there. I mean, you see every one bomber at a time just getting blown away, and the last one at the very last moment pulling it out at the end.
Barely.
But all you see is maybe 3 ships come back. And that just hits you, that it was just that heroic moment, but then you're like, at what cost? You know.
One of the things that reminded me of, because I'm a big history buff, and when that scene happened, and it just reminded me so much of the old World War II B-17 footage. And that was that. I mean, the funny part is I've actually talked to pilots and people that were on those planes, and it was very cramped quarters. There's nothing comfortable about it at all. Do you think B-17 is big? It's not. I've been around one. How 8 people can maneuver in there is an amazing thing. But it definitely had that feel, that the B-17 World War II bombers. So I liked that part of it. It put a very, once again, maybe it just shoots back to my generation a little bit because we remember things like that.
Well, no, there is a precedent for that in the Star Wars universe. You know, everybody knows George based a lot of the trench run and everything, and a lot of that battle on World War II footage as well. So, you know, there's precedent for that. It's not too big of a deal. That wasn't definitely one of my huge gripes. I mean, whatever. It's a movie about space wizards.
No, I'm fine.
A little bit of gravity shenanigans. Well,
there's no sound in space. There's no sound in space, so it's like, and there's no air, so you can't do dive curves like this. I mean,
yeah, but let's. I think Chris had a good point with the segue there into the relationship between Poe and Leia, because I also enjoyed that a lot. I think they really built her character a lot at the same time that they built this new character Poe. Her line where she tells him, you know, all heroes know leaders. To me, I was like, yeah, that's right. You're pretending to be a boss. Like, you do not understand what's going on, obviously. Like, the way that she was treating Poe, I thought was spectacular. It showed her level of quality leadership, because with everyone else, she was like, no, let Poe be. We're working on him. We're training. But when she was interacting with Poe, she was busting him down like a private. She wasn't having it. I like that a lot.
Well, one of the other, you know what? Go ahead.
Well,
Chris?
I mean, it showed, it really put forth that Leia had been in that leadership position all of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you really see it in this movie that, you know, you saw her kind of headstrong. You know, you saw her headstrong all through the trilogy, you know. And then you saw a little bit more of her human side in Return of the Jedi. And then you come back you go back forward 30 years and you see her. And really in Force Awakens, she had some commanding presence. But I would say in this film, she had a hell of a lot more commanding presence in this film.
Agreed.
Now,
Um,
do you know what's else amazing? And if you think about this, the reason why Poe is not getting court-martialed, now again, we're going back a little bit more to reality here, but his little stunt he pulled by sending Finn and Rose off actually caused all those transports to be destroyed, because now if he had never sent them off, the plan would have gone ahead. They never would have detected them. They would have gone to the planet, and the First Order would have gone by just like Leia said they would have.
Yeah, there's
Poe is
definitely a lot of
completely
plot holes
responsible
with
for
that.
loss of half their fleet.
There was that was one of my huge problems with the film, and there was definitely in my mind, there was a misunderstanding about tactics and how just straight up how things work. Like there was a lot of mistakes there. Laura Dern's character, whom I loved, and the way that she interacted with everyone reminded me of playing with you guys. You know, like she's playing one of these stubborn leaders who like is a leader but's not that good at it. I thought the juxtaposition of Laura Dern as a leader versus Leia as a leader was perfect, because Leia's amazing at it. Like she's top tier. She knows how to handle these people and make things work. Laura Dern not just straight up taking Poe aside and saying, "Look, man, I got something in the works. Settle down. I'm gonna take care of it." If she didn't want to tell him anything, she could have told him that, and that would have been enough for him to settle the heck down and not cause trouble. So the fact that she didn't do that is they had to have her not do it for the story to work, which was a problem for me. You know,
right.
small problem. So I think that's pretty good about the opening part. But what do we think? Because did we jump? Yeah, it took more jokes. You know, he's leaking, Finn's leaking, and then his first thing that he says, "Where's you must have a lot of questions." No, man had one question. Where's Rey?
Where's Rey? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Where's my girl at? Is she okay?
Well, it's just like you got to remember this. His last conscious thought was fighting Kylo Ren on the Starkiller base, and that's his last conscious thought. He just got struck down pretty much.
He would have been justified if his first thought was, "I'm not dead."
Well,
Yeah.
it's yeah, that too.
Yeah, so that's legit. I enjoyed that, and then it cut right to it, and we got to it. What did y'all think about the controversial lightsaber throw?
Well, I don't see why it's so controversial, though. I mean, what do you expect? Luke Skywalker basically just ran away from the galaxy, and obviously didn't want to have anything to do with being a Jedi or anything. I mean, somebody comes walking up to him with a lightsaber, obviously the one that he lost a long time ago. Probably thinks it's a facsimile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's probably perceptive enough to know that it's his old one. But to just throw it, I mean, come on, that's perfect. That perfectly sums up the way Luke's going to be the whole rest of the time.
It was cinema excellence, because that was the last thing you'd expect when you're watching that film. The look on his face, everything else, and then when he throws it over his shoulder, that's like, whoa! I didn't see that coming. It was just like, you know, the big up music, the last scene in the last movie. Out of hell with this. It's just like, okay, now you've been set up for, okay, what is going on at all?
Yeah, I mean,
what is going on? It's funny because I've seen some of the interviews with Mark Hamill on this, and he's been really critical about the direction. No, Luke never would do this. And I hate to say it, and this is where I'll disagree with Mark Hamill on this. You never know what you're going to do until you're placed in a certain position. And the thing that, as I said, when he had that moment later in the movie, he has the moment when you find out the moment of weakness. And the funny part is, he's trying to hide that moment of weakness. He's been hiding it the whole time. He doesn't want anybody to know about it. It was actually him that caused it. Is that when it's that moment of doubt, he says, I have to rid the galaxy of this evil. And it was just, and then it's like when I can't do this, too late at that point, as he said. And at that point, he's just totally, I've lost faith in myself. I did the wrong thing. It's like if you think about the original Luke character, oh, he would never do this. Well, the original Luke character was a little rash a lot of times. So, yes, you could see if he got desperate enough, yeah, he could pull that.
Okay, so you went straight for it. You went right straight to the end and right straight to the stuff. I'm not going to touch on that right now because I have a lot to say on that. But what I will say is that I really enjoyed his reaction to the lightsaber and his initial reaction where he was just like, and other people have mentioned this as well. I don't know if we mentioned it earlier, but it reminded me a lot of Yoda playing when he's going through that Luke stuff and like just chucking stuff out until he finds the little lantern or the lamp, and he's like, no, he's not having it. He just walks off. So I really like that. I loved what they did with the porgs, with the porg almost killing itself with the saber. That was flavor that I enjoyed. What did y'all think about the porgs and the caretakers of the island? Did y'all enjoy them? So we had the scenes, all the scenes with Rey and the caretakers of the island, where she's like breaking the island, and they're like, "What the heck?" And then we had the scenes with the porgs and Chewie, kind of tormenting Chewie as after he ate their homie, and this little guy was like.
The funny part is, it's like at this point they're already dead. It's like, fuck it, you might as well have a meal at this point. I mean, they're already dead. They're not coming alive if you throw them away. It's like, fuck it, I'm hungry. But I did find it humorous.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good scene. What about you, Chris? What'd you think, man? Too much? Perfect? Right on?
Oh, no. I thought actually it was done really well. You know, you get the porgs, you know, the obvious merchandising for the little ones, you know, get the little ones in the Star Wars. Obvious. But they didn't do it like cheesy. You know, it was, you know, there was a couple moments, you know, with the yelling at, you know, with the Millennium Falcon, but I mean, that was just very slight. Other than that, I thought they were all right, you know. And the caretakers, I loved them because it's just like they didn't have to. That was a nice thing. You didn't have to understand them verbally to know what they were thinking because it was just obvious. Like
my cart.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. Actually, there were more scenes involved. I found out that, and there might be some on the deleted scenes when it comes out. But there were more scenes where Rey completely did something wrong and caused them more trouble. Those are the two we saw. There were more that we didn't see that were filmed.
That's fine.
And that just makes me laugh because she's just this wonderful character that people love. And these people that are here, they don't love her at all. She's a pain.
Yeah, I like that they kind of toned it down a little bit because it could have been too jokey if they overused it. And you know, I think everybody, she's so perfect. Everything is just handed to her, whatever. Like, no, well, there's certain instances where not so much. You know, like that's not exactly the case. If you want to say that, you can make cases, but whatever. So let's jump next in the film. We kind of got this. I don't know if this is next in the film, but we got this montage with Luke and Rey, and he's sort of over his day. Man, what did y'all think about that? What are your reactions to that part there? Where he's milking the animal and fishing and all of that. She's following him.
That was mildly revolting.
The milking was a little. I thought a little. Just that was one of those parts that was just a little too much. It was like, oh, okay, no, I get it, you know. But the rest of it I thought was pretty good. You know, you get to see a guy that's, you know, I don't know how long he's been gone because obviously he hasn't been gone the whole 30 years. I mean, there's a time when Ben was, you know, just a younger kid, and now he's, you know, older. So it's probably, I'd say he's been there probably like maybe 10 years. He's probably been on that planet, and you know, no technology. You see that the X-wing, his X-wing is buried in the water. He could pull it up at any time he wanted to.
I'm pretty sure his lightsaber's in there too, the green one.
Yeah, no, I thought he had that still.
No, he never had it, never showed it. I never seen
okay.
it. No, I need to rewatch it. I don't think he was ever in the film. I think he got rid of it.
He might have, yeah. So
when he tossed that blue, and it was like, nah, I already got rid of the one I made. What do I want with this old one?
Right, exactly. But I mean, he's trying everything in his power to not use the Force. You know, he's
okay. So that's a good segue into the next part I want to talk about. when he goes in the tree and Rey's hearing the voices, and he has to ask her, "Who are you?" So if we finally started to realize, how quickly did you? Let me ask you all this: how quickly did y'all pick up on the fact that he was not using the Force at all? Because I could tell almost immediately. Like as soon as she came up and he was just like, "Nope," and tossed it and walked off. I'm like, he's not using the Force, is he? Because he would have known like there was something wrong. He could have sensed that Han was dead. Like he would have
Right.
known a lot more about what was going on if he was open to the Force. How quickly did y'all pick that up?
He's using it a little bit. He's not using it to the point of, it's more of on a subconscious level. You can see it by the way, we were talking about in the beginning when he's doing the fishing part and stuff, and those survival instinct. I think the Force is still working in that way. But outside of that, yeah, I'd agree. He's not using the Force yet because he would have sensed Han. He would have known pretty much what might be going on. He'd have had some kind of idea, and he had none.
Yeah, and then the door breaks down, and we're all like, "Just Rey attacking him?" And here comes Chewie. Okay, well let's jump a little bit and take it back to the other side of the galaxy. And this is one of the things where I wasn't too happy with. We got to jump back and talk about the battle that took place, the unceremonious exit of the galaxy of everyone's favorite Fishman. Pour some out for Akbar, y'all.
It's a trap. Oh!
Yeah. Didn't even get a line. He just got blown out, and that was that. I'm like, Force Jesus Leia. Why don't you force field him too and give him some backup? This is your boy. So, what did y'all think about literal Skywalker Leia and that whole situation there? And you can talk about the Kylo not shooting or shooting too if you want. That whole thing. What were your reactions to that?
Go ahead, Kev.
Oh, you're muted, brother. Still muted, man.
You muted.
Why don't you jump in there, Chris, while he gets that technical issue sorted out? Okay. Oh, there he goes. What's up, Kevin? You're back. Okay, drop it on.
I just had a anyway.
Skywalker. Let it on us, man. Tell us what you thought.
Okay, if we're talking the Leia scene where she uses the Force, it's like, okay, everybody and their mother, especially my age, has been waiting to see what she's learned or what she's done, and finally we get to see something. I think if anything, it was just for lack of a better term, we wanted to see her do something mildly amazing, which I do stress the word mildly amazing, because she's blown out into space, and then because anybody follows Star Wars Rebels, Kanan's been shot out into space too, and he kind of got back the same way. So this was okay. Just acknowledge it. Okay, she's got some use in it. She knows how to use it at least a little bit. So, and not to mention, it killed everybody on the bridge was killed except for her. So it just says, okay, yeah, she's a little more powerful than we. And it's for lack of a term, it's just a play towards those who have been following and just we want to see Leia use the Force. Leia use the Force. Leia use the Force. Finally, we get to see it. So.
Okay, so Kevin was straight. He liked it. He was like, "Oh, that was cool. She used the Force." Now we're moving on. What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing as hell, because I thought this is how they're ending Leia right now. Boom, this was it. How dramatic it was that she's just kind of staying there and just kind of lets go, and then boom, she's out. And I thought it was amazing. I have not seen Rebels, so I haven't seen Kanan getting blown out in that whole scene. So it was a little bit more impactful for me, because it also showed that yeah, she didn't use the Force like Luke's path was. Luke was more becoming a Jedi. We can tell that Leia really wasn't. She had the ability in the Force, but that wasn't her path. Her path was helping the galaxy rebuild after freeing it from the Empire, then helping it rebuild from the Empire, and then still defending the galaxy when the First Order comes about. So that's always been her path. But to still have that Force ability and be pretty powerful, obviously, because I don't know how far Kanan got blown out of the ship, but if you look at how far she got blown out of that bridge, she was, I would say, a few kilometers away from that ship before she turned around and started going back towards it. So, I mean, it sucked her out pretty hardcore. And the explosion, too, that was on top of it. I mean, there was some perspective to it. You could tell she wasn't, like, right up next to that ship. She was quite a distance away.
Okay, so
I
feel like you're pretty ambivalent. Kevin thought it was awesome, and me, I hated it. I was very upset. That was one of the moments I almost exclaimed verbally in the film, like, "What?" Because, as Han said last film, that's not how the Force works. Okay, like I get it. In Rebels, Kanan was expelled by air from a vessel and pulled himself back in, not from an explosion that knocked him unconscious. Okay, you can't use the Force when you're unconscious, number one. Number two, you can't use the Force to survive in a vacuum. That's not what's up. Okay, so that was stupid as hell. I was very upset about that. I was very happy when they blew her up. I'm like, oh wow, they're gonna take out Leia just like that. I thought it was very bold because I was very excited to see her leadership skills. They blew her up. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Showed her floating there. I'm like, wow, this is really intense. They're milking this. And then she started to do stuff, and I'm like,
it really was
frozen, bro. If it had been immediate and she had like jumped right back in, okay. If she had been trapped in some rubble in the ship and had to use the Force to get, to safety out of the vacuum of space, dude, she was frozen. Okay, I'm sorry. She was frozen. She was knocked unconscious and frozen.
Okay,
that was dumb. So that's I don't want to like, I'm just expressing my opinion. That's all it is. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. That was one of the moments in the film that I thought was stupid, and I was very upset by it. I wanted to see Leia use the Force as much as everyone else because I agree she's an incredible Force user. Yoda wanted to train her instead of Luke. Yoda was like, man, I don't want to train this kid who can't even control himself. No. That's canon in the new books. It came out in the canon. It's in the stories. It's a collection of short stories, and one of them, the Force Ghost of Obi-Wan and the Force Ghost of Yoda are conversing about it. And Yoda admits to Force Ghost Obi-Wan that he would have preferred to have trained Leia because she has discipline. She, like you guys said, she was raised up to be a leader from birth. Like, that's her training. Luke was raised to be a moisture farmer. So Yoda was obviously, I would rather train her. So yeah, I mean, I love Leia as much as anybody else. I was just very upset by that. Her using the Force is great. Her surviving the vacuum of space, I call shenanigans. That's all I'm saying. So we can move on from that. I definitely wanted to get that out and touch on that because, I am in the camp of people who love the film and will defend the film, but I have to call a spade, man. That was dumb. You can't do that with the Force. Like, if somebody tried to do that in my game, I'd be like, no, dude, I'm sorry. You got knocked out and knocked into space. You're frozen, man. You're dead. That's it. But anyway.
In all honesty, though, the thing with the space, it does take, okay, if you get any, and this is scientific fact, is it will take approximately 15 to 20 seconds once you're exposed to vacuum of space. You can survive for that long. Now, given she's Force sensitive, you can probably
hold your breath. She was unconscious, therefore breathing in frozen air into her lungs, which is her moisture, which her lungs will freeze and she will die. I'm sorry, dude. Like, the science is science. It's like if you close your eyes and you hold your breath. There's ways you can survive the vacuum of space for 20 seconds. Yeah, but like, she was anyways. It's a show about space wizards. We don't need to bring science into it. We already had the gravity thing. Like, it's cool, not a big deal. I thought that part was dumb. I loved the Leia character when she got back in. It was cool. They were like, oh my gosh, and they helped her, and I was like, oh my god, she made it. This is incredible. Now what are they gonna do? And they tucked her in a bubble and left her until the end of the fucking movie, until she shot Finn or Poe, which I thought was super badass, and I love that part too. That part was awesome. So what comes next? Now that I've gotten a mild rant out of the way, and I had to rile y'all up a little bit. Where do we go next in the film? What happened next? let's jump to talk a little bit about Snoke, Kylo Ren, and the First Order.
Well,
Drop it on us, man. What do you think, Chris?
Let's see. I liked how the interaction between, once Hux explained his plan to Snoke, and then you have Kylo come in, and he's in his helmet, and basically Snoke just chastises him, basically calls him a kid, and then he goes in the lift and just throws a temper tantrum like a kid and destroys his helmet. But you can tell he kind of changes his attitude a little bit, grows up a little bit, but you can still see that there's still that temper tantrum in there. And later on, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, you just see that he's starting to let go of that thing. And I'm still curious and plot hole, why does Kylo Ren want to be Vader so much?
Well, one of the things I thought, actually, that scene, now that I think back on it, that is the scene where Kylo realized my father was right.
Are you talking about the scene where he smashes the helmet in the elevator, or the scene where Snoke is breaking him down?
Both.
Okay.
Because he's like being chastised, and then he's in the elevator, and he just pure anger. It's like, my father's right, which goes against everything he's ever thought. And that, he just realizes his father was completely right. And that, I think that, if anything, is what, as you say later in the film, changes everything. Is that scene, because if Snoke was understanding about it, then he probably wouldn't have turned on him. But since Snoke, at that point, he just realizes his father's right. He will discard you when he's done with you. And when he said, "Oh, you've been redeemed," he's not having any of it. So that's the point where he really turns on Snoke. He's just waiting for the right opportunity, and it happens.
I think you may be right. I think that was a little bit on the nose, the way that they portrayed that, but I think that's totally what's up. I really loved the part where Snoke was talking shit about Hux while Hux, like, the lift had not closed yet. You can still see his face, and he's like, "That's why I keep a dog on a leash." I'm like, yeah, that's right. You make sure your dog knows he's a damn dog and he's on a leash.
Yeah. Hux, man, through this film, he's the butt of the joke.
Like you said, take that mask off. Like, why do you wear that ridiculous mask? Dude, Snoke had some great lines, and he had incredible displays of power. One of the things that you made me think of, let me get my nerd on now that I already bust everybody down about that's not how the Force works about space. Let me put my nerd hat on and prognosticate a little bit about some possibilities here, because we know from the film, this was stated in the film, that Snoke was using his powers to connect Rey and Ben. Okay, we'll call him Kylo now because we know he's for sure turned. And yeah, I think that's definitely the moment when he's getting bussed down and then he goes in the elevator. That's the moment he decided, yeah, I'm gonna kill this fucking guy. Like, I'm tired of his shit. I'm gonna kill him. But what if he was getting riled up by Snoke purposefully, like through this connection, man? Like, I think there's a lot more that we can milk from that, and I think there's going to be a novel that'll come out that'll really delve into Snoke more, since we kind of lost him from the tail.
Well, mostly. One of the things that I see all the time on a lot of videos people have done, or they're like, "I am just so upset they haven't done enough with Snoke," and you know what? I'm totally fine with the fact they haven't done much with him. You know what? It's like, it's one of the gripes people, okay, for people who watch Star Wars Rebels, when in Star Wars Rebels, when Maul and Kenobi face each other 30 years later or 40 years later, whatever it is.
One of the best scenes in Rebels.
Yes. And it went by too quick. I go, no, it didn't. It did exactly what it's supposed to do, because one was overconfident in his abilities, and the other was totally, in other words, he didn't want to fight at all, but he goes, no, I will defend. And basically Kenobi had an idea with it, and then all of a sudden he saw his idea change. He went to a certain stance, and he had a feeling that, okay, I'm going to go to this stance, and he's going to go for this maneuver because it worked for him once, but I know the defense for it. And so that's exactly what happened. And that's what it reminds me of in a lot of ways, is you have the guy that was overconfident one way, and he said, no, I know how he's going to view this, and therefore I'm going to use that to my advantage.
Yeah, it was definitely, and it seems like Ben did the same thing later on when we have the confrontation between them. So that's definitely valid there. So let's before we get into that, because that was definitely a highlight of the film. Let's jump back over and let's briefly discuss the training, quote unquote, Rey's training from Luke. So what do we think about his comments on the Jedi Order and its status in the galaxy?
The view of a cynic, complete, utter view of a cynic, at the point where he doesn't. It's like he's like, it's. You have these high ideals about something, and then when you get into it, you find out what you believe is not true, and how flawed they were, and that's really what it was. I mean, he was just really. He had this high ideal. This is what the Jedi, and he had this idea what they were, and when he looked at the truth of it, and to be honest, he did have the truth to work with. He just, not to mention his own faltering with it, his all faltering. He just kind of like, how do I say it? He said, okay, I should train this person just so they don't go down a certain direction. That's really, I think, the only reason he did it. He goes, okay, I don't want this person to be a dark, drawn to the dark side. So I'm going to show them a little bit, just to appease them, just to give them just to get them. But I don't want them to fall to dark side. The second she started going dark side, it's like, okay.
So you thought Luke was trying to scare Rey off, basically?
No, I won't say scare her off. Just kind of like, okay, give her just enough. But I honestly don't want to do this. But I need to give her just a little bit, just so she doesn't go down the wrong path.
Let me jump in before you, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
But as I said, just a very reluctant instructor. Just doesn't really want to do it, but he can see enough to where it's like, okay, I got to do at least something. If I give her just a little bit, maybe she'll leave me alone. The other part of it's like, okay, I don't want her to take a certain path.
I'm gonna precede you in the queue here, Chris. I thought this was really cool, because if I had any doubts previously about whether or not Luke had cut himself off from the Force, this was when I knew fucking for sure that he was not in touch with the Force in any way. During this scene, when Rey's on the rock and he's just talking to her and he's trying to do, he's basically good guy dude mock tacticking her. That was the most excruciatingly uncomfortable sentence I've ever spoken. You know how Vader says stuff to put you off your guard? That's Dune mock tactic. Like, he was using that on her. That's what I think. But like, because he's not using the Force, he's just having to use his words to convince her of something. So, man, that scene is another one of the things where I feel like, you mentioned it, Luke has had or Mark Hamill had problems with the character. I feel like that's one of the things that probably he would have had a problem with. I kind of have a problem with it, although I agree, because personally I couldn't be a Jedi. It's like the philosophy of shenanigans. So I understand anybody who calls shenanigans on that philosophy, man. Like, it's pretty much shenanigans. But yeah, man, I thought Luke was better. I thought he was a better man. You know what I'm saying? So what did you think, Chris? I'm sorry I jumped you in the queue, but I just wanted to get that thing about the Force connection out there.
No, that is totally fine. My thoughts. He was right about a lot of stuff. When he said that the Jedi let Sidious basically let him come in underneath their nose and destroy the Order. I mean, he was right. That's what happened. You know, the Jedi were their own undoing, really, quite honestly. And the piousness and stuff of the Jedi needed to go. Did they need to go outright? No, I don't agree with them. I think Yoda, and we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit,
You're fine.
says, basically that, no, the Jedi are going to move on. You're always looking to the horizon, look at the moment. That's what, these two are doing. This is what Kylo's doing. This is what Rey's doing. They're looking at the moment. They're not looking at the future. Well, maybe Kylo is, but Rey's looking at the moment. That's what she's about. What's going on right at this moment? The Resistance is in trouble. What are we going to do about it? Not looking to.
She learned that lesson the hard way in the desert. She had to live day by day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She and Yoda said it. She doesn't need the books. She knows what's going on. She feels it. Intuition.
Did you not catch it?
What
she has the books. They were in the Millennium Falcon. Finn.
Yeah. I missed that part. I don't know how I didn't catch it, and I've heard that, so I can't wait to go back and see it again.
But when you think about that, makes me want to bring this up too, so we can talk about this now. That Yoda scene, when you think about it in terms, because you didn't know that she had taken the books during that scene. That came out after that. So the first time you watch it, you don't know. But when you think about the scene back later, and he's like, "How's all that she has?" and he burns the tree and everything, and it just puts a whole nother level to Yoda's character, because he's just that little rascal.
It puts it back to the when like me and Kevin have seen Star Wars in the original order. That's the first time we met Yoda like that kooky little I'm prankster. And then we see him evolve into that he was this more serious character back in the past. So you see both those elements in there of Yoda's still serious, but he's not taking it so seriously. He's taken the lessons he learned from Qui-Gon about how to become a Force ghost. You must, and if you've ever watched that episode of the Clone Wars, that 3-part episode, it's a great episode and covers a lot of things about the Force that, we don't think about in a lot of these movies and stuff. Until now, I would say until now.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, brother.
Well, no, I'm just saying that until now, this movie, I think, has put a lot different perspective on the Force as far as the films have gone.
That is true.
Up until now.
That is true. I mean, that when you saw the blue light and all of a sudden you see the ears, and just that was the one moment that was one when I really got excited. And when that happened, and then all of a sudden he just starts shouting, it's like, it's like, listen, you did not. I mean, it's like, yeah, you didn't hear a damn thing I said way back then. I said, pass on what you learned, and you didn't. And it's like, I told you to do this. You didn't. And he complained about the exact same thing he did that day in the hut 40 years prior. And it's funny because I think, once again, everything's turning points in this, in my opinion. And in this movie, that was Luke's turning point when he said, I think at that point when Yoda's there and he's trying to challenge Yoda in a way, he really is. Not that, oh, I'm the master, you're not. And it's like, oh, you're wrong. And then Yoda just, for lack of a better term, just kind of, just puts it in a way where Luke has to just sit there and go, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I honestly don't. I cannot compete on this level. And that's when he goes back to, maybe I need to learn something. And that's really when I think Luke's turning point happens. Says, you know what? I have to be involved again. I don't want to. But my own, because he talks about the Jedi's hubris. I think in some ways he takes his problems that he had, and for like a lot of people do, is, oh, it's not my fault. It's not me that did this. It's the Jedi that did this. Although he does blame himself for Ben Solo, but he does look, oh, the Jedi were wrong, and I was following the Jedi, therefore. But I think that's where his point. He kind of got a little bit of clarity there, and it's like, I have to get back involved in this, and that was his turning point in the film. Is when Yoda showed up, when someone that knew what was going on, and that could actually go to him, because Rey, regardless of how good she was or whatever, could not convince him of anything. It had to take somebody that he had total respect for to totally challenge, say, you're wrong. And that's what Yoda basically did. He said, you're wrong. And he did it in a way to where I have to listen to what he has to say because he does have the wisdom.
Well, I don't know if he exactly told him you're wrong, but what he showed him was that he had lost the will to make his own decisions. He had turned his back on the Force so that he couldn't tell what path to take, but he was allowing himself to just be washed along and just go along until he could die. He had just come here to die. And so, yeah, I mean, it was real transformative. He ran up there super angry. He was at the peak of his emotion. His emotions were peaked. Like when he had been fighting Darth Vader, his emotions were peaked and he gave in and he was, I'll kill your sister. And he's like, fuck, no, you won't. So, I'm going to burn this tree down. He was on fire. And Yoda was like, you're not going to do anything because you have lost your way. You don't know what's going on. And after that, he's like, nah, and he went and he sat on the rocket and became a boss. But there's a few things here as far as canon and how things work. I definitely want to touch on before anybody has to go. So the Force Ghost powers thing, how Yoda could interact and use stuff, that was pretty cool. If you want to touch on that, the connection, the long range connection thing was pretty sweet. We actually saw someone appear in the water transport from the island to Kylo Ren on the ship. We saw that occur. That was pretty fabulous. And I got to give myself props on that for my Christmas game a couple years ago or last year when I had Santa teleporting the presents to the kids through the Force. So like, yeah, that's totally canon now. I got it, called it. And the other thing that has definite implications for our game, the game that we play, and for the Star Wars universe as a whole, and this might be jumping ahead a little bit as well, but apparently now hyperspace speed jumping thing is a weapon. Like, what's up with that?
Oh, wait, you mean how they're able to track through hyperspace?
No, I don't care about that. That's fine. What I'm talking about is how Laura Dern took out the fleet, which was one of the most incredible scenes in the film. Like, they finally cut it and stopped and gave you a minute to breathe, and it's just like boom, and everything is, and you're just like, it's
that I have to admit that was amazing. It
was amazing. But that was another thing, like the same thing with Leia floating in space, and somehow that's fine. Like she can just float back in and be good to go. I'm not sure that that's how hyperspace is supposed to work. Like, what did you guys think of that? And if you're cool with that, as role players, I want y'all to kind of run me through that. Like, how can I keep my players from abusing that bullshit? Because that's bullshit, man. Like, that's going to be shenanigans in the game.
No. That actually makes a lot of lights makes a lot of sense.
Time out. Wait a minute. What did we do on Kessel, dude, in Ashes to Ashes? Almost the exact same bullshit.
No. We had a prototype drive that was tampering with time and space. And instead of destroying the planet, we like crashed into the planet and caused we were like a massive comet. Our weight and mass was extremely accelerated because of our speed. So that was understandable, dude. Like, I'm pretty sure Han Solo has flown his ship through things in the movies.
No, technically that would be what's referred to as a hyperspace shadow. Because what happens is hyperspace and real space are the same thing. So anything that exists in real space also exists in hyperspace. Now, what would happen on a hyperspace drive, it would recognize a hyperspace shadow, and the hyperdrive was shut down. I've seen that plenty of times in many different facets, I guess you could say. Now, technically, if you disabled that where it didn't work, what would happen? Because here's the thing: you think about a war.
So she turned off the railgun so she could do it.
Have you ever heard of a railgun?
Yeah, I know what a railgun is.
Okay, so it's the same theory behind a railgun. Is it when a railgun shoots, it's going insanely fast, and that's what makes it so powerful because its mass with its energy going through is just so immense. So technically, you take a huge ship like that, you put it into hyperdrive. Before you go into hyperdrive, you have to accelerate beyond the speed of light, which technically you can't have to do. You have to form the warp bubble and that. I mean, this is all science.
Yeah, it's fake. It's not real science.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
The thing I'm asking is you. So you say that there was a safety feature in place that kept it. So she turned it off, and that's how she broke the ships.
Yes, because there is what's called what they refer to as a hyperspace shuttle. So you're traveling through hyperspace, and let's say an asteroid crosses your path. Well, that's going to be what's referred to as hyperspace shadow. What should happen is the hyperdrive engine should automatically shut down. But if you're starting the thing up right there, I can see where it wouldn't quite work as right because you're not actually engaged yet.
Here's my next question. In the Warhammer universe, that's like the #1 way to kill people and destroy planets is you just take some shit and you, like a big chunk of metal or a comet or something, and you just put a hyperdrive on it and you shoot it into something. How are we going to now keep that out of our hobby? Because we don't want our players to just be like, well, I get a ship and I fill it with weight, and so it's just full of mass, and I keep a fighter that weighs 1,000,000 tons, and I shoot it at any enemy that is a cruiser. When the Star Destroyer comes, I fly my TIE fighter into it and it blows up.
Well,
like how can we keep that?
TIE fighter doesn't have a lot of mass to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they build maybe not a TIE fighter, they take whatever ship, A-wing, completely fill it with like the most heavy metal in the galaxy. So that's what I'm saying to you. That is, I'm just foreseeing shenanigans as a game master with that. As soon as I saw it, I was like, whoa, what?
Exactly, but there's a way to do it as a game master. If we're doing it as good game masters, there should be ways. You got to do roles for shit to do shit. So, for example, all right, so you got to turn the ship around, pilot the ship. You got to make a piloting roll, against this massive ship. There's ways to do that. Then you've got to calculate the hyperdrive. Then you got to warm it up, and there's steps.
So what you're saying is that you have to make it be possible and just make it prohibitively difficult, or make it be possible, but just
you know what? If they achieve it in the process, why not fucking give it to them?
Okay.
This isn't like we're not talking about Lucius sitting here trying to pilot this thing because he would probably ultimately pull it off. But if this is just some guy who's got like a 2 in freaking piloting and like just 2 in his agility and no other ranks, and to make these turns, he's not going to probably do it. He's going to probably tear up the ship before he even has a chance.
Okay, I'm sorry to derail this from the movie talk. That was just my first reaction to it after. I was like, this is badass. I'm like, wait a minute, all my players are going to abuse this. So let's get back to the movie.
The thing is, it's like, all my players are going to abuse this. Well, your players are dead.
Well, yeah, dude, you heard me earlier. Like, if you end up in space, you're going to die. Like, I know I don't take any of that. Oh, I can survive for 20 seconds.
Well,
like, close your eyes, get back in right there. But anyways, let's jump to the scene in the throne room. Rey, Kylo Ren, and Snoke. Let's talk about that. Who wants to go first?
Totally awesome. That's all I can say. That was just like one of the.
Kevin.
Although I saw it coming. I did see it. I did see it coming, not completely, but when they show the one scene with the lightsaber turning, and go, oh, I know what's going to happen. At that point, yeah, I know what's going to happen. But at this point, I just love the fact he totally doesn't see it because he's looking at it as this, okay, I'm the master. It's just like the Emperor was with Vader. Your father can never be turned from the dark side. Snoke was the same way. He's like, you can never turn my apprentice. He's mine. Hell, you go back to the Lord of the Rings when you had Christopher Lee up on, now given it's an extended scene, but he had Christopher Lee up there with Wormtongue. Yeah. And he's just like, he's a wimpy human. And he turned around and stabbed him in the back.
Well, I think you might be selling Ben a little bit short there, because I'm pretty sure that what he was doing, what he knew full well that Snoke was in his mind and he could not keep him out. So what he was doing was whatever Snoke was describing was what he was doing with his main hand. Like, he was doing that with his lightsaber, but he was also secretly using the Force to do it with the other one. So like, he was thinking about it. It was so dope, man.
But it's totally, but it's like the thought never entered his mind. It just
even if I'm sure it entered his mind. He was a Darksider. Darksiders always assume the apprentices are going to turn on him. But Kylo knew that and used it against him. So he had a decoy that was the exact same. That's what was so slick about it, man. That was great Ben character building. He's bad.
Not to mention,
I'm sorry to jump, bro.
One of the things, he just realized that Snoke was just going to discard him at one point. As I said, he knew his father was right, and that really bothered him. So he said, I have to get rid of this guy. I'll become. So basically, what he finally figures out, he's got the opportunity. I can become the leader. And now I have an apprentice that can work with me, and I'll be the leader. And that's where the story went. I got to admit, I love the way that arc of the story is when Snoke was taken out, and then he had all his guards around, and then they teamed up together at that point. And then at that point, when he's like, okay, come with me, at that point, I'm sitting there going, all right, Star Wars says she's going to deny him. But at that point, I'm looking at going, would it be the ultimate fluke if she accepted? It'd just be the ultimate whoa if that happened. And for a moment, you weren't sure. They played it in such a way that you could see maybe it happens, and maybe she brings him back to the light by joining him a little bit in the dark. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like maybe because everything else had taken so many different turns at this point.
Yeah, I want to hear from Chris, but I think there's definitely a lot to be said about the expectations of the way they were used in this film. But what did you think about that scene, Chris? Before we get into that, because I definitely want to talk on that.
It was So the whole controversy of how Snoke didn't sense it. Of course he did. There's some people that say, well, how could Snoke be so powerful and not sense it? One, we don't know actually how powerful he was. He's powerful enough to cross some bridges, but we see Luke later on projecting himself
in the back of the head with their own lightsaber
clear across the galaxy.
Awesome.
So, I mean, if we think about what we know about the Force, of course he didn't see it coming. He was distracted by Rey and by Kylo and all that interaction about them trying to turn each other, to whichever side. And he was too focused on that to realize that Ben wasn't even caring about that as much as he wanted to get his ass out of the way. I thought it was great. I'm glad I was so glad that they cut him in half, and that was awesome. I was like, do it, come on! And then when they actually did it, I was like, that was one of those oh shit moments when I'm just sitting there in the theater going, oh shit, I did that several times in the movie. There's one of those moments.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I had the same thing for me. That one didn't want to make me want to exclaim, but I knew that was going to be one of the big scenes immediately. Then, well, as soon as they go into it, you're like, this is going to be legit. But so here's let's touch on this real quick. And this was the main reason that I made this hangout actually, is to sort of touch on this point and get this out there. The expectations people had going into this film. This was the scene where the people who can't let their expectations go are going to latch onto and say, this movie fucking sucked. I hated this movie. Like, it's not my Star Wars. # not my Star Wars. It is no good. Because this is the one where they were like, Rey's parents, she's not a whatever, she's just nobody. So whatever you may have thought about that, or however much time you had invested in possibilities for that, like, don't worry about that. And Snoke, whatever your Snoke theory, whatever, like, it doesn't matter because he's dead now. So, like, the people who were really invested in certain outcomes, and the outcome that I was invested in was Ignite the Green. I wanted to see Luke Skywalker fight somebody and use the Force and, like, use his green lightsaber. That's what I wanted. It's like, I had expectations as well. I'm not in this party. Everybody had some expectations. But, like, when you go into the film and you let those expectations ruin your enjoyment of the film, and then by proxy, because you become toxic after that, it ruins the enjoyment of the film for other people. That's where we have problems, man. And that's why I wanted to have this discourse with y'all, because I knew there were some parts of the films I didn't like, and I figured there'd be somebody around here like y'all who were like, no, man, that was straight. That was legit. We can have this conversation, and it's not like a big problem. Like, we're still homies. Like, that's what's up, man. The expectations in this film. I really enjoyed the scene when they fought. I didn't need, we'll see if he was lying, and maybe Rey's parents are somebody, but,
well,
I thought it was cool. What did y'all think about that expectation?
In all honesty, if you're I have one phrase to say about it. If you're totally upset that Rey's parents weren't somebody, the only thing I have to say is lighten up, Francis.
Well, okay, now wait a minute. Now we're going on this, and is Battlefront 2 considered canon?
It is. It is. It has been
Yes.
stated to be canon by the canon makers.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, isn't it not hinted that we think we know who Rey's parents are,
No,
correct?
they made. There's some new content that came out just recently. If you have Battlefront 2, you can play it right now, and it just downloads automatically. You don't have to pay for it. And it's a continuation of Iden Verso's story. That's the woman that was possibly Rey's mom. She has a daughter on the planet. It is not Rey. It's a different girl.
Okay, cool. All right. I did not
Yeah,
know that. So, all right. So
Different
then, yeah. So, what about if he is telling the truth? What about if she is just some
I think he's telling
nobody?
the truth. Yeah, he's totally telling
Well,
the truth, man. That's what Darksiders do. They screw you with your own truth. Like,
Now here's something. He says your
Who
parents were
cares?
nobody. They were junkers that sold you for drinking money.
savage.
Here's one place they didn't go with this because the theories didn't summarize into this so much. That might be totally true. He's telling the truth from his point of view.
Uh-huh.
What if her grandparents were somebody?
That's true.
Kenobi would not have a child that age. Kenobi would have a grandchild that age, but not a child. Same with any of the other characters from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, but I think the only
disagree.
possible parent that we had, or wife that we had, the match that we had for Obi-Wan was Satine, or whatever the
That would
Mandalorian
still be
lady.
a granddaughter. It would have to be a
Well,
granddaughter.
right, but I don't think that a princess or a queen of Mandalore is going to allow her child to be just raised by or taken on sold by smuggler. That's not the type of kid.
It's but my point being is there's a whole
But no, I'm with you.
flaw with that theory that now she's nobody. Well, you know what? Honestly, she probably is, and that's probably where it's left. But in all honesty,
Broom kid is the
like
justification for
because
that.
we're making this video right now, and people go, "Ooh, I didn't think about their grandparents. Maybe the parents." Decided they didn't want any part of this, and they wouldn't be junkers. They had a kid, and they loved whiskey, and they traded their daughter for a fifth of Jack Daniels. I don't know. I mean,
And really, quite honestly, I think we're missing the whole theme of this movie. Is really it blew away everybody's expectations. Everybody expected one thing and got something completely different. That was the first theme. The second theme was they're getting rid of the old. The old is going away. And it was themed through a lot of the conversations in this whole movie. The old's going away, and now the new's coming in. Because we know that there's a trilogy that's going to happen immediately after this. So they're going to end it with Leia. And, look what happened at the very end. The Resistance is left with just a handful of people left in the whole galaxy that's left in this Resistance. Even their allies didn't come to help them in the end. It was just them. That's what the theme of the next movie is going to be all about. What the theme pushing from the old into the new. One finale of the old going into the new.
Yeah, I'll say it'll be interesting to see how they get that in one film. But I want to
episode 9, I think, is really going to be the start. Almost like I won't say like Revenge of the Sith, but maybe a little bit of Revenge of the Sith bleeding into Star Wars Rebels. Maybe if you want to get something similar. It's not going to be, here's this new Resistance, and it's just starting. It's, I think that's where they're going to take episode 9 a little bit, is it's going to be more of a, okay, the First Order, because you're going to have allies out in the Outer Rim, because to me, I don't think the First Order has all the power like the Empire does. I think there's lots of systems that would actually go against them. In other words, the Empire's power was political mainly, and then enforced by a military. First Order is pure military with no political power.
They have both now, but that's in the novels. The Leia novel has that, but yeah, that is canon. But I don't think that they're very. This film is when I decided, as a fan, I have to accept the fact that the people who make this stuff care less about canon than they should. They very much do. The actors were not informed of the canon information about their characters. Like, nobody told Mark Hamill the new canon for his character. They let him presume some old stuff that's like been erased as canon, and they never even explained to him what was up. Like, that's been made clear in the interviews. But I want to jump because I don't know how long you guys can talk. I have plenty of time, but I don't know how much longer y'all can go. Let's talk about the last battle. Or the march on the base and the showdown and the passing of my hero and all of our favorite maybe character, Luke Skywalker. And I'll go ahead and start on this one because to me this was my favorite part of the film. This was the part that this is the reason that I love the movie. And I think this is a perfect example of how I'm a perfect example of how you can take your expectations and turn them into something that's not so terrible. Okay, because what I wanted, I didn't get, or I sort of got it, but it was a jack. Like he ignited his green lightsaber to kill someone. Like that was a part that should never have been in the film. Like it's a misinterpretation of his character. Rian Johnson's an asshole for making that happen, and Mark Hamill has said as much, and like that's bullshit. If I don't want to take anything out of canon, because that's not how making movies works, but if I could pick something to take out, it wouldn't be midi-chlorians. It would be the fact that Luke Skywalker decided he needed to kill a kid just in one instant. Like that was stupid as fuck. That was dumb. He could have handled it in another way. As a Jedi Master, there's way better ways to handle a messed up. You could cut off his connection to the Force. He could have done that. He doesn't have to ignite his lightsaber.
Here's the thing: is
no good. No good.
The character Luke Skywalker has been tempted by the dark side for a very long time at very point. And okay, that one you can say it's a stretch, but it's not totally out because he's looking at it going, if the Jedi had just done this, that would be the end of. In other words, he was, and he saw this happening, and he decided, I'm going to go totally against what they think. And then, in a moment of weakness, that's when he ignited, and then realized his mistake. I hear your point, but I
understand what the film was trying to say, but there's no possible way you could ever convince me. He had the chance to kill his father, who was the ultimate evil of the galaxy. He turned his saber off. He didn't do it. There's no reason he would turn his saber on here. It's dumb. It would never happen. You're entitled to your own opinion. I'm not actually trying to discuss that at this point. We'll get to that. But the part where he actually, no, I don't want an argument. I guess maybe the viewers do want an argument, but I don't actually care about that, man. I'm just saying that was dumb as fuck. Like that was stupid. With the part when he was cleaned up, and he didn't move the sand, and his lightsaber was the wrong color. Everybody knew that. Did y'all pick up on it right away? I knew it immediately. Like, that's not right. That saber was just broken.
I definitely noticed age different. I'm like, something's not right here. I couldn't figure out what it was, but something just wasn't right. It's like I said, younger, for someone that has a gray beard, all of a sudden for it to be a darker color, yeah, I know that.
Maybe R2 got him that just for men.
The just for he got the just for men product right before he showed up. I know.
But the one part in the film when it cut to him after he got cut through and he wasn't there, and then it cut to him and he's floating in the air like a fucking Buddha or whatever. Like that's what I did in the movie. I
loved that.
That was my favorite part of the movie. It was beautiful and amazing.
He went out in a way. In other words, he went out in a way that was deserving. It was redemption for him. It really was. I loved that part. The fact that he went out on a high note, he basically gave them the time they needed. He knew that what he was going to do would be fatal. Kylo Ren himself said, "You can't be doing this. It would kill you."
Well, what you mentioned earlier is true, man. How, he was a different person and then he had this total change because a few scenes earlier, he told Rey, "What do you want me to do? Go fight him all by myself with a fucking laser sword?"
And that's exactly what he does.
Exactly what he did. As soon as he let go of his ego and what people expected of him, as soon as he let go of his expectations, he did what he needed to do. I'm sorry, Chris. What did you think about that, man? What do you want to drop onto us?
I totally. I think it was like I said, you can tell that it's showing the beginning of the end, or now we're in the middle of the end. We lost Han Solo. Now we've lost Luke Skywalker. We know we're going to lose Leia in the next one because of how things have gone down in real life. So that, and then how once you realize, if you realize it either early on or you realize it towards the end that he's doing this from across the galaxy. You see that is an ultimate display of the Force at that point. And then him to go out, just accepting his fate and letting go with the Force like his mentor Ben did, and then later on Yoda. Now himself and his own father at the end of Return of the Jedi. That kind of tradition of now, the Jedi don't have to just blend in with the rest of the Force. You know, there's an essence of them that can still guide it without even holocrons for that matter, where it's actually the essence of the person themselves. So I thought that was great. I'm glad they ended it like that. They didn't, you know, there was only one or two ways that I could, you know, I was hoping he would go down in a blaze of glory against Kylo Ren, you know, like Ben Kenobi did against Vader. And in a way they did it, and they did it, but they didn't do it the way I would think they would. And it worked, and it was great, and I'm glad they did it. So that was a great scene. I mean, but yeah, there were, you know, like the hair was shorter and darker. I did catch that. I'm like, well, something's off, and then, you know, and I didn't catch it at first until I thought about it halfway through the battle. That, oh wait, the lightsaber he's got in his hand was destroyed about 20 minutes prior to that in the throne room. Didn't realize that until halfway through the battle, going, wait a minute, that's not
and also
right either.
when he changes his stance in response to Kylo's stance, the sand doesn't turn red, or the salt doesn't.
I didn't notice that either, but I heard somebody review that and say, and I didn't notice that. I'm gonna watch for that the second time, but hell yeah! So great scene though. I loved it.
Okay, man, and then I guess we should sort of just touch on the ending of the film, just because, like, you know, the movies. And now I'm done. Like, I've talked about Luke. I'm happy. I can live my life now. But you know, I guess we should talk about it. Kid Jesus. Rey, moving those rocks or whatever. Oh, my final training is moving rocks, just like I was not wanting to do.
That's it. Cool. Well, I just love the thought. It's like, it's not about moving rocks. So what she do? She moves rocks. That was just. I thought it was just.
It was good.
You had to have, you know, I hate to say it, you had to have her save the day just because. I mean, that's just, you know, they had something they couldn't get past, and she was there to get them out, and she did. And as I said, the way the film ended, it definitely left to where, okay, we're going to get another movie. The other movie obviously is going to be time jumped. It's going to, you know, it might be 2 or 3 years in the future.
Yeah, totally.
And we have no clue what we're going to get. That in itself is actually kind of exciting, because Return of the Jedi, we knew what we were going to get when it was coming out. Given you guys didn't have to wait 3 years for it. I did. So, so I remember how much it's like at the end of that movie and having to wait 3 years to find out what happened next, because although in all honesty, you knew it was going to pick up somewhere with Han Solo, you knew the whole Darth Vader reveal. This one, it didn't end on a cliffhanger at all. It left on, okay, where are we now? Because like anything that you were thinking might happen didn't. All these other things didn't happen. All you're left was, okay, we have a closing, and we just don't know where it's going now. We have no idea what's going to happen next time. And that, in a way, is extremely refreshing. It really is.
I don't know, man. I think that is one of the symptoms of the problems of the film, is that where we were at the start of the film is basically where we are at the end of the film. Things changed only for, like, the few main characters. Like, I guess they're the ones who are going to light the spark. Right? There's just a tiny spark. But, like, the galaxy is still screwed, even more so than before. So that's a thing. And we did not talk about Canto Bight because, like, I don't want to go on another rant about bad stuff. So, like, we're just gonna skip it. There was one other thing, but go ahead. Anybody else want to say something while I remember that?
Oh, one thing I do want to say is one of my favorite scenes was when the Falcon comes in on Crate, and with the music from the original Star Wars movie with the TIE fighter battle, if you remember when they were escaping the Death Star, and you see it in that. Oh my God, that was just like the clincher right there, man. I love that part. That was my absolute favorite scene.
It was cool.
Rey down there, the only one shooting the laser, man, as Chewie's flying it. That was badass.
It was badass. I'll agree to that. I hope there's a deleted scene that shows, like, how they got there, because that was a little weird, but, like, whatever. I can live with it. It was cool.
But they weren't that far away, though. Remember that they were just right outside of Crate on the ship.
That's true, and they had the sensor thing to lead them. But, like, I mean, I just meant, like, how did they get away? That's what I'm.
Oh,
anyways.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
Broom Kid. I want to touch on Broom Kid. I guess the only thing from Canto Bight that I want to talk about. Y'all know who I'm talking about with Broom Kid, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so
Oh,
that's yeah. That's the unofficial name for him, and I love it. I'm gonna just keep calling him that because it's fabulous. So I think that's basically they put it at the end, and everything was sort of really obvious in the film. So I think we should take that for the obvious symbolism that it was. Like you said, man, the old people are gone, the new people are coming up. Ray's nobody. This kid is nobody. But nobody kids like this who are sweeping stables on gambler casinos and shit are gonna be the new Jedi. They're gonna be the new people. And now this is the same thing as people's Snoke theories and all of that. But now I guess we're at the end. We can talk about theories. What is the state of the Force going to be like in the future, man? Like, I think we're going Children of the Force, and there's not going to be dark side and light
well,
side. In as much as like you're a Sith, you're a Jedi, it's going to be just like you're a child of the Force, and are you in trouble or are you not?
Well, we're
well,
setting it up.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Well, the Force is its own entity. It does what it wants. I mean, I see all the theories that Anakin Skywalker was created by the midi-chlorians to balance what Plagueis was doing.
Yeah, that's what canon pretty much.
I've heard that. Well, I've heard that theory. I don't buy it as canon necessarily, but it is a very good theory.
That's the theory. That's how Rey is so powerful.
And then Snoke, for example, Snoke says the light has to, when darkness rises, the light rises to meet it. He just saw Skywalker as the light to meet it, not this girl. And so once again, he's killed off. And in a way, the Force is kind of in balance right now because you got a dark side user, light side user that are about equal in ability. And both of them are closer to each other than you think they are in a lot of ways. So my thought on that is it really, and as I said, you say Broom Boy.
Broom Kid.
That was, okay, here's the thing. The Canto Bight, I didn't have too much of a problem with it. I was okay with it. But I didn't say I was thrilled by it. I just said I was okay with it.
It was too Harry Potter for me.
So I did like, oh my God, the best thing I ever saw was Las Vegas in space. No, that's not my thing. But I actually like some of the things that they did with it. It was okay. But as I said, it was just kind of okay. But when the kid at the end happens, okay, now I see why that had to be there. That had to show a scared little kid who's almost a slave. Way Anakin was close to it.
Basically a slave.
Now he grabs the broom using the Force, and it's like, okay, now we see where this is headed. And you could not have had that scene unless you had Canto Bight.
You totally could. It would have had slightly less impact because you wouldn't have known who Broom Kid was. But if they had just shown a little bit more of the scene with like Luke standing in front of the thing, them telling the story of Luke and how it's passed on, and then done Broom Kid, it would have been. Plus, if they had,
but still, you have
this is one of the things I
unless you have the backstory with that kid, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. It really is like, oh, what the hell's this?
We could have got rid of Canto Bight, closed the plot hole of Laura Dern's character being the most incompetent leader that the rebellion has ever known, and like got rid of that half hour to 45 minutes of film and put in like a little bit more info on Snoke. You know, who the fuck is Snoke? We could have got some Knights of Ren because that's still like huge out there. Like, what's up with them? That's the other thing that maybe in the future, the Knights of Ren. And then we could have actually got some like meaningful character growth for some of the newer characters, man. Like,
it's no, but the end with the kid and the broom, I think that really puts the whole thought in place more than. And as I said, you can't do that without the Canto Bight scenes. That's why I'm not. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers everybody else. So it just doesn't. It's just one of those things. It's like, okay, it's there. Yeah, it's a slow point at points, but we're not talking about the Hobbit trilogy here. So I mean, it's.
Some of the CGI is about that tier, but Chris, what did you think, man?
The only thing I disliked about the Canto Bight series was the chase scene once they went into the dark. It was, I don't know about you guys, but it was so freaking hard to see, and I was on like almost like 4 rows away from the screen, and I still couldn't see it all that well. And then going into back to Luke and Rey, and it was still dark for a while. That was a tough part of the movie for me, is that it was really hard for me to even see, and I was, like I said, pretty close to the screen, and I still had a hard time.
It's, as I said, I mean, everybody.
But I mean, other than that, I
I'm
didn't
not
mind
as bad with it. I'm just not.
I had one other problem with the film. As soon as this was besides the later on is when I started to dislike the choices that they made with Luke. When I started to think about them, I immediately had a reaction to the Leia thing, and oh shit, I forgot. There was one other thing, but whatever. I don't know. I think we're wrapping the discussion up, man. So it's just a free form now. If anybody has anything they want to talk about, any final thoughts, I mean, we're just wrapping it up at this point. So.
No, as I said, I thought the film was great. I enjoyed it, and people that have gone back to see it a second time get it more. And I have to agree with that. When you see it the second time, you catch more, and all of a sudden, certain scenes all actually start to make more sense. Like, and as I said, one of my favorite reviewers of movies is Chris Stuckman. I watch his videos all the time. Mm-hmm. And he said he loved the film. And when he saw it the second time, he was saying that this could be better than Empire. And then after he saw it the second time, okay, I can't say that anymore. But it still was a great film. I still loved it. I think he ranked it right below Return of the Jedi, was his thought. But or right below Force Awakens, and he actually liked it better than Return of the Jedi. So I think that, and his whole gripe was mainly the Canto Bight scenes kind of slowed everything down. And okay, I can see that point a little bit, but in my opinion, I guess maybe because I didn't know Canto Bight was happening. He just said there's a point in the film where it slows down with Finn and Rose. And when I saw it, I go, oh, this doesn't sound nearly as bad as he made it out to be. Or it's not as bad as he made it out to be. I wasn't, maybe I was expecting worse. I don't know.
Chris, what about you? Anything else you want to bring up for the discussion and touch on?
Not too much more, just that I think that it was I mean, with the couple little things, everybody finds something wrong in the movie. I mean, we all do. I found little bits and pieces that I found that, were off on it. Overall, I thought it was a great movie. I loved it, that it blew away all the expectations. I think people just need to get over the fact that, I think this movie showed that people just need to get over the fact that, theories are theories, and when your expectations are one thing, and those things get blown away, it can, be a hard thing to take. But sometimes expect the unexpected. That's some of the fun things about life. I didn't really go into this movie with any real big expectations. I was like, well, maybe they'll do this or maybe they'll do that, but I really didn't have anything to say as far as the controversy, or not the controversy, the story about whose Rey parents is. Overall, I thought it was great. I'm glad she is just somebody in the galaxy, that's got the ability to be with the Force. That's kind of the theme of the Force, really, is that anybody can get it, not just the Skywalkers, this big long legacy of people that have it. I love the fact that there is a legacy of it, but I'm glad it's going to be over with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like this.
Love that. I love the fact that we don't know who Snoke is, because you know what? Quite honest, when it comes to Snoke, I mean, I'm just going to wrap this up real quick because I do have to go to bed here soon. But
yeah, give us your final thoughts
with Snoke.
We'll wrap it up.
I'm glad he was nobody. Yeah. I'm glad he's a nobody. I mean, really, quite honestly, we don't need this. There's dark side users. We know that the dark side's present. There's a light and a dark. It keeps everything in balance. We don't need this Sith Lord or anything, this Grand Lord. The dark side's going to come up whether it comes up or not. So I'm glad that they don't really have this really big guy we know. Although I am quite curious what his relationship and Luke's relationship really was. That's kind of the one question I have, because obviously it was Snoke versus Luke. Why? What was going on between that? I guess we kind of know, but we don't really know the whole story. Other than that, definitely go see this movie if you haven't. Well, if you're watching this, then you're crazy. But I'm one of those that if I don't see this movie, I'll still watch spoiler ones. So if you are, it's cool. But if you haven't, go see it a second time. Definitely. If you've seen it once, I'm gonna go see it a second time. And looking forward to the Solo movie. That's all I'm going to say. I'm pumped for that one that's coming up next year. Hell yeah.
All right.
So if you're looking forward to seeing some old, I mean, we get to see some backstory of the old, but that's it for me, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming in, man. I'm glad we got to have the chat. Kevin, why don't you give us your final thoughts on the film and wrap it up, and then I'll do the same.
Well, my thoughts on it very simply is this was a very good film. Definitely worth seeing, which if you're watching this video, we've already seen it, because if you didn't see it, you're an idiot if you're watching this. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. It's a fact of life. You are an idiot.
You should have watched it first, yeah.
But the film was great. I can understand why some people have some problems with it, but I'm just not a purist. I'm not. It's one of those that they did a good job with it. When you do something that surprises me, that is impressive. I'm an entertainer. I play music on a stage, and one of the things I always try to do at doing that role is when I'm up there, I want to lead people down a certain direction and then turn at this right turn without them expecting it, because that's what excites an audience, is when they're going down a certain path, all of a sudden they get turned and not expected. And this movie did that. It did that very well. If it'd been, as Mark Hamill said, well, Luke is a Jedi and he would have been this, it would have been completely and utterly expected. It would have been fault. I still would have liked it, but it wouldn't have excited me the way, it's like, for example, Clone Wars and Rebels. I love both shows. They're great, but everything is very, very expected with that. It's when it falls a certain path, it stays on that path. Rarely does it branch off into something I never saw coming. And this movie did branch off where I did not expect it to go. And that's what makes it so good. So if you want more of the same, hey, you can watch the old movies. They're still there.
All right, I think that was fair. My closing thoughts on this. Well, before I give my final thoughts on the movie, I just want to say one thing. I'm sorry if you guys have to hear this. I know y'all aren't part of this crew, but yo, there is some shit going around, and these people who are unhappy about the film that we're not having in the community, especially in the Tide to Change role-playing game club. Like, I'm not a leader of the club, but I'm telling you right now, like, we're not having any of this, man. Like, if you're upset about this film because there was like a black dude in it, or like an Asian girl was like important in the film, or like, you know, you think that they're just super sexist and social justice warriors and that's like why you hate the film, like, get out of Dodge, man. Like, that's some bullshit. You need to figure that out, because like, that is not a valid reason to dislike the film, okay? Like, I don't want to hear none of that at the comments. We're gonna keep it copacetic, like we did here, man. We have actual valid reasons for our opinions, so we're not having any of that. And I want to stand firmly in opposition to that with my homies here and everybody else who is saying, no, man, we're not having that. That's some bullshit. So yeah, man, we're with all the cast members as they put up with some bullshit. Like, we're with you, people. And as far as my reaction to the film, I loved it. I came out happy. I came out enjoying it. Obviously, there was a couple of parts where I was like, what the hell was that? But it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the film. Obviously, people had problems with their expectations of the film. I'm the same way. I had expectations that, you know, that was whatever. But hey, that like my friend here, Kevin, just said, man, if you can't go in and have a twist go down on you and just accept a twist and say that was interesting, and even if it wasn't what I liked, like, it was something that happened and now I can moving forward from that, like, work on that, bro, because it's just a movie, man. It's a movie about magic space wizards. Like, we're having fun here. Okay, so just chill, man. This ain't about politics and all of that nonsense, or like, I'm the biggest fanboy of the Force ever. Like, I want to understand how the Force works, even though it's fake. But like, I recognize it's fake. I'm not gonna get booty hurt about it. Okay, so whatever. That's what I thought about the film. Thanks for checking out the video. Go join us on Tide to Change Role-Playing Game Club and get your game on with us. You can play with me, you can play with Kevin, you can play with Chris. We all run games, we all get in games, and we hope to see you there. Thanks a lot. I appreciate everybody. Let's show your support for the club and everybody else for Star Wars. Let's keep the community positive and growing and having a good time. Let's bring in the young people so that more people will love the movie like we do. Thanks, YouTube. We'll see y'all around.